This is Thank You Mama, weekly lessons from mothers all around the world. Hello and welcome to Thank You Mama. My name is Anna Teider. My guest today is Dunja Bonacci-Skenderovic. Dunja is joining us from Zagreb in Croatia. And Dunja is an independent consultant for the elimination of violence against women. And I am very happy to have Dunja here because in this last, I would say almost 140 episodes, we covered so many different and important topics for women, from sexual harassment to feminism to racism. We even spoke about witch hunt, abuse, different kind of addictions. It was very important for me that we also talk about violence against women, and I'm very, very happy Dunja is joining us today, because Dunja has 15 years of experience working with this topic. She worked for various NGOs and international organizations, including the United Nations, on the topic of violence against women and trafficking in women. Dunja, welcome. I'm so happy you're joining us today.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm also happy to be here, although the topic is the heavy one, but we have to tackle the topics that are not always pleasant.
We do.
And violence against women is definitely one of those topics.
And we have to talk about them.
Yes,
because
definitely.
If you talk about unpleasant topics, you help women to cope with them. Yes. I know how much it helped me when my friends told me about their miscarriages, for instance, and it's hard for women to talk about it. But then when I experienced one, it was tremendously helpful that I knew my friends also experienced them and what they look like, and that I'm not alone in this. And to call them for support, it was really, really helpful. Or loss of my mom, same thing, talking to other women and other people who experience the same loss. It helps to cope with it. Dunja, so I very naively called you and I said, Dunja, I want to talk about violence against women. And you said, but we have to specify what exactly we want to talk about this. Tell me a little bit more, because this is such a wide topic. And then I went and did some research so I can specify what I want to talk about, and realized that, yes, it's a really, really wide topic. Can you tell me a little bit and remind my listeners, we don't think about it. We think violence against women is maybe rape and domestic abuse, but there is so much more going on. Tell me about the topic.
Yes, gender-based violence against women, or violence against women, is first of all, violation of human rights and a form of discrimination against women. And it covers various forms of violence, which refers to violence directly against women because they are women, or violence that affect women disproportionately. So we have domestic intimate partner violence and femicide as the worst form of intimate partner domestic violence. And the domestic violence usually includes physical, sexual, psychological violence. The numbers worldwide, 1 in 3 women have experienced some sort of physical or sexual violence by their intimate partner. So it's a huge proportion of women that were victims of domestic violence. Then one part of domestic violence is also psychological violence and coercive control. Mm-hmm. And I also went and looked at some numbers, statistics. 44% of women have experienced some sort of psychological violence from a partner during their lifetime. So it's again, a huge number. Then when we are talking about domestic and intimate partner violence, stalking is also one of the forms of the violence. Yes, I found the numbers for United States, and it's approximately 15% of women in the United States have experienced stalking. And out of this percentage, more than 60% of them reported that person who was stalking them was their current or former partner. As I already mentioned, and you also mentioned sexual violence, which includes sexual harassment and rape, which are numbers also very, very high. So, for example, in European Union, there was a big research a few years ago. It showed that between 45 and 55 of women has experienced some form of sexual harassment since the age of the 15. Again, there are other forms of violence against women, like forced marriages, child marriages, which is also a huge issue. Also, female genital mutilation is one of the forms of violence against women. I found this data that at least 200 million women and girls aged 15 to 49 have undergone female genital mutilations.
200 million currently?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, it's a huge, huge issue. And in most of these countries, the majority of girls went through female genital mutilation before age of 5.
I am shocked. I'm sorry.
I know.
But this is why we need to talk about this.
Yes.
We need to, and
definitely.
we live in a global world, where this attitude towards women, it might feel it's far, it's in Africa, but it trickles, this attitude.
You will be surprised, actually, that with the migrations, that, we are, as you said, we are living in the global world, and with the migrations, female genital mutilation is not isolated only in Africa. So, because people are not they might leave their countries, but they don't leave the customs. Also, with the child marriages, it's not just an issue of the people who are migrating. For example, Roma people have child marriages. It's something that we don't talk about it, but it is here. Also, what I would like to emphasize few more forms of violence against women that women do not talk about it. Violence against women in public life. For example, Interparliamentarian Union did this study on violence against women who work in parliament as a parliamentarians. 82% of them said that they have experienced some sort of psychological violence during their terms. And 65% of them has been subjected to sexistic remarks, primarily by their male colleagues. Also, global surveys show that 73% of women journalists have experienced online violence or being attacked and abused offline. So this is also a huge, huge issue. And because this is now very current situation in Croatia, but also in Western Balkans countries, there are two other forms of violence that are not recognized so easily. This is the institutional violence and gynecological violence. So many women recently, in last few years, especially in the Balkans, start to talk and share their experience about gynecological violence they experienced during their childbirth. And unfortunately, we don't have a statistics. We just, for now, have stories. But as you said, it's important to talk about it because women always feel alone. Like, is this what happened is this only happened to me? Yeah, or maybe to others, but I should be quiet because there is this, the doctor is in a position of power. He have a power over me while I'm very vulnerable during the childbirth. So women don't talk about it until something bad happens.
I have a friend, Dunja, who took part in a big law case with hundreds of women who sued a gynecologist in Los Angeles who obviously harassed women during the examinations. And I spoke to her about this, and she said, look, I was young and I didn't know better. And he would flatter me and this and that, and I thought this is just part of the examination. This is why it's important to talk about it. It's important to teach young women, about their bodies and how much is okay and what is not okay, and to allow them to have a voice when something is uncomfortable and say this is not right.
Yeah. But in this sense, gynecological violence is something that is the treatment of the women during the childbirth. And they're treated badly, and some procedures are done without anesthesia, and there are sexist jokes during the childbirth from the doctors and also from the nurses or technicians. So this is what women are now talking about it.
Yeah. Dunja, I have written 2 other things. I think we didn't talk about this: trafficking in women.
Yes, also trafficking in women is one of the big issue. It was also a big issue in the 2004 and 2005 when I started working on this topic. And it's still a big global issue. And now it's not anymore just women from the Eastern European countries trafficked to the West. I think this global thing changed a lot in the last few years. Yeah.
I read that 80% of people, of humans, are being trafficked for sexual exploitation, according to United Nations. So this is still the majority of.
Yes.
And my guess is most of them are women.
Or children. And also women can be used also as a forced labor purpose, but also for the sexual exploitation at the same time. So this is really something that women are really vulnerable in this form of the violence against.
I have so many questions for you, Dunja. I want to ask you, we women in the West, and a lot of most of my listeners are in the West, are grateful to our ancestors and our societies and education and everything, that we more or less are relatively protected. Relatively, I said, because we heard the statistics about domestic violence, and it's still not ideal, but it's not as bad as in some other parts of the world. But it's still important that we're aware of these things and know about them. What can we do? What do we need to know and be aware of, especially if we are mothers of daughters?
I live in Zagreb. I live in a country that is Western, no, still we are in Balkans, in some mind, in some state of mind. But definitely it's something that part of the European Union, and we have all these conventions, and I find myself also a privileged one, a highly educated woman. But as I started to work on the issue of violence against women, I realized that no woman is immune to it. And it affects all of us. Why it's important to talk about it is because we have, silence is not helping anyone. And I think Me Too movement showed us that when one woman tells her story, other will join.
Yes.
And, Me Too movement started from the States. And it was a movement that unveiled how huge sexual harassment at work in one industry is. And it started from the glamorous industry, because we have to understand that violence against women is not about geographical location. It's about power and this balance of power between men and women. That's why we have a violence against women. Domestic violence, sexual violence, that is pretty much not pretty much, but definitely all the cultures. That's something that is globally present. You asked me about what mothers of daughters can do, but I think mothers of sons can do more.
Yes.
Because I think they have to teach, they should teach their sons equality, empathy. They should teach their sons never to be violent towards their partner, toward other women. And because the strong emphasis is put on the prevention, what women and how women can protect themselves. What we should do in order not to become women victims of violence.
Yeah.
And there is also lots of victim blaming, but we have to shift this because none of us wants to be raped, attacked, become victim of intimate partner violence. So we should focus on perpetrator responsibility. It's really hard to shift this paradigm. It's really hard, I know, but we have to, shift it. But what I would like to say is report. Talk about it. Report. I know that system is sometimes doesn't understand because they think victim did something in order to, become a victim. But report, because when 100 women report, somebody in that system will start to think, and it will not look at the reports as an incident. Maybe it will see the pattern. Maybe it will, the light bubble will come up and this person will start to think about what is happening and how to prevent that. Because the whole time we are talking about how to punish the perpetrators, but we are not talking about the prevention. We are not actually working on the causes. Yeah. Because if we know the causes, then we can do the prevention well. Yeah.
I wanted to share something with you that just occurred to me as we were speaking, looking at these numbers. I think you said 1 in 3 women worldwide experience domestic violence. I have now interviewed 140 women from all over the world. And it's interesting that maybe 2 women until now mentioned that they witnessed domestic violence at home. And according to statistics, it should have been much, much more, and we know it's more, but we don't, as we talked about it, we don't feel comfortable talking about it. We don't feel comfortable mentioning it. And we have to, as you say, it's one of these topics that needs to be talked about in order to be prevented. Yeah, a lot to talk about and a lot to be aware about and a lot, as you say, to talk to our children about. But apropos children, let's talk about Mama. I always ask my guests when I prepare myself, I asked about their mom's name. I know your mom's lessons, but I forgot to ask you her name. What is her name?
Tanya. Her name is Tanya.
Okay, Tell me about Mama Tanya.
Okay, so my mom was born after the Second World War in communist Yugoslavia. And as far as I know, I was thinking a little bit about my family history. And I think she's the first woman in her family who finished university and also got a PhD.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So her father, my grandfather used to finished law, but he used to work in theater his whole life. And my grandmother, my mom's mom, was a housewife and she was their only child. And now we come to the interesting part. She got her PhD in civil engineering. It's unusual for women to go to the civil engineering faculty in the late 60s. So she was one of the 2 or 3 women in her whole generation of students. So on one hand, her choice of faculty and career was not something usual for women at that time. Usually women were nurses, teachers, maybe if they go to the technical universities, they would be architects. They went to architecture, but just, hardcore civil engineering is something that women didn't do. And also in the 70s, she started to work at the university in Split. So she was a professor, and also she was a rare woman professor in the field in the 70s. So on the one hand, her choice of career was untypical for women at that time. And she's a woman who is also, she's a mom and woman who is also very open to new technologies. So we had a personal computer at home in the early 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who is driving car in our family. But on the other hand, she tried to fit into the role of a wife and a mother. And now when we have some discussions, I'm sometimes very surprised by her attitude toward women. And she's sometimes very judgmental toward women, especially if they don't fit in this pre-described role of wife and mother. Like she's not see that she's not fit in that role completely. She tried to have to to fit in, but the woman who was a civil engineer and woman who was a professor at a very male profession, the woman who was walking to construction sites where you only have is like something's judgmental towards women who don't fill in this role of mother and wife. And, she's a mother of three. I have an older brother and younger sister. And so looking at from today's point, from this point now, when I'm mom and, have some, I'm almost 50 years old, I'm looking that I think that she tried very hard to have both a career and to take care of her family and her parents because she was an only child. And in all this process, she didn't take time for herself. Actually, I'm not sure that she even has had a hobby, something that she really enjoyed doing. She was really focused either job or the house family. So,
did you have friends?
Not much. I think
she didn't have time.
Because that's one thing. But the other thing is she moved from Zagreb to Split. She was born in Zagreb and she lived here for 30 years. And then she moved to Split. And I think it was maybe the adjustment was hard for her.
Did she move the whole family with her? Because if she was 30...
We moved all together because both my father and her got a job at the civil engineering faculty in Split. So that was the reason why we moved from Zagreb to Split.
Do I hear that your father is also a civil engineer and also teaches at a university? So did she meet? So I'm guessing she met him at the university.
Yeah, they met that when they were students. She actually married very young when she was 21. But my brother was born 6 years after they got married. So it's again something that was not typical or usual for that time. Usually, women got married, they got a child, 1 to 3. However, usually in Yugoslavia, I think two kids were like limit.
It's interesting. I never thought about it. 3 children were really very rare. I don't even, I'm looking back, I don't think I know anybody from my group of friends in Zagreb that had 2 siblings.
It's really rare. And for example, my sister was born 8 years after me. So first was 2 kids and then she decided in the late 30s to have another one, which is again something not usual for the straight line that people usually think that life should go in the straight line. So she's stubborn, she's determined, practical, rational, but emotions are something that she doesn't show very often. She's a warm person, but she doesn't show the emotion. It's not very hugging type of mom, but I know that somewhere there are some, softness in her, but, not too much kissing and hugging. So she showed us that she cared for us by financially backing up our education, by providing for us. But, emotions were not territory. I will go that later on. She's retired now. She's living on the coast, actually on the island.
Oh,
now,
nice.
And enjoying, her retirement years.
Fantastic. Great. And they're still married and happy?
Yeah,
Great.
married and happy.
Fantastic. Tell me about her lessons.
So one of the lessons from all this that I just told you about my mom, one of the first lessons is to be independent and self-sufficient. When I was a kid, through the elementary and middle and high school, she was sending me for a month or for a few weeks somewhere without her. I hated when I was little, but when I was teenager, I love it because, a month somewhere without, parents, you can do whatever you want. But she decides all of her 3 children will study in Zagreb. So we lived on the coast. We went to the capital and to live on our own. Also, what was not usual in our family is that because that's how this lesson of self-sufficiency and independency is that there was no strict and usual division of household work between my parents. They shared the household works. And I think that's a good lesson, not just from the mother, but from the family in whole. For girl to see that mother is changing the light bulb, or that is, taking the screwdriver and trying to repair something at home. These are the really good lesson of how to be self-sufficient and independent person, so that you don't rely on somebody else's knowledge about, something that might be labeled as a man work or a women's work, man's job or women's job. Yeah. So I learned from her to be oriented on solving problems. So not to cry a lot when you face the problem. Okay, I cry a lot. But, to, get up and approach the problem and see how it can be resolved, not to discuss too much about it. For example, in 2005, she got breast cancer, and she was not on one of those persons who will sit and chat with her friend like, oh, poor me. That she just, I have it. I have to do something. This is my health project. And, she was really oriented on solving that problem. Luckily, she catch it early and everything was fine. But it was her health project. Like, I will now just focus on this and work on this, and I will resolve this problem. So that's also a great lesson how to approach the things. So not to give up when things don't look great. And that's another lesson that I learned from her. Sometimes things are tough in life. Yeah, I cry, I get up, I go for a run, and then try to get a new perspective and get on with my life and try to solve that problem. And also being persistent. As a professor, she always said that her best students were those who were studying hard and not those who were super clever. And that really sticks with me, like hard work, persistence, and then you will succeed in achieving your goal. When I was little, I didn't understand what she was talking about. And I was rolling my eyes most of the time. But now, when I've got all of my degrees in life and resolved many issues and problems in my life, and I know now that that is true, that, you have to be persistent and work hard in order to achieve the goal. Yeah.
Do you have more, or do you want to tell me about what she was not able to teach you?
What I would like for her to teach me was, as we mentioned before, sexuality, women's bodies, that was a taboo in our family. I think that was maybe a taboo in lots of families, and it still is. But it's really hard. This is the topic that mothers should talk with their daughters.
Yes.
This is definitely where we should feel comfortable confiding in our mothers.
And Dunja, I want to support this statement of yours by saying, again, from 140 interviews I conducted until now, very often, like one of the most often answers to this question is sexuality and women's bodies. Women really wish that their mothers spoke to them about it. And they say even they understand sometimes our mothers didn't grow up in a way that they are open enough to talk about it. But at least if she told me where to go, whom to speak to, or bought me a book or gave me a pamphlet about a woman's body, if they even tried in some way to support their daughter. So this is so important, such an hugely important topic for women. And the cute thing is, one of my first guests put it in a very fun way. She said, I wish you talk to me about this so I didn't have to go through so many trials and errors.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this. Because when I was preparing for this podcast, I was like, should I say this? But on the other hand, it was really important to say.
Yes,
because
it is.
She didn't teach me. It's not her fault, because
it's not
really
her fault.
Because she was not taught how to talk about sexuality and bodies and women bodies and all other things that are connected with this topic. But I think we as a women and as a mother now should learn from their mistakes and say, okay, we will talk with our daughters and maybe even with our sons about sexuality and body. And I'm trying to do that with both of my daughters, to be more open. Even the subject is sometimes like, no, it's just a subject. It's us who are giving some notion to this subject. Is it comfortable and
how old are they?
Or uncomfortable? 19 and 16.
Yeah. I have one of the rare mothers who always talk to me about it, and I am endlessly really grateful to her about this. And I remember, and this is what I repeat with my son, who is now 9, how matter-of-factly she spoke about it. She, as if she was a biology teacher. There was no emotion, there was no shame, there was no like, oh, I don't know. It was just as if, again, like as if it was science, It's just like, oh yeah, your vagina, this and that and blah, 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 and that's totally fine and normal. And I am so grateful to her about this. She would even take a pencil and draw to me when she explained to me how sex works. She's like, and this is a penis and this is a vagina. And I was like, what? But, it's fantastic. It was fantastic. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. It seems to me that when I have this conversation with my daughters, that they are more uncomfortable than me. I'm like, okay, I will not be, I will learn from this lesson from my mother, and I will be open, because you should not go to your first gynecological check alone. Usually, bad things happen when you don't have information.
Exactly.
So you should get some information.
Yeah.
Although my mom was this very rational woman and goal-oriented, she still is. What I miss from her is to teach me that expressing emotions is okay. Like being happy is okay, being sad is okay, and being very happy is okay. She didn't teach me how to enjoy small things in life, how to celebrate little things in life, because, she was focused, very focused, and in our family, all were focused on academic success. And in my mind, they had these expectations that I should do. And this didn't leave me the room for breathing, like thinking, exploring what I really want. And also in this whole complex family dynamic, I think she never told me that she's proud of me. Like really told me, like, Dunja, I'm proud of you. She showed me. Yeah. I know that she is, but sometimes you really need those words, like, honey, I love you. Honey, I'm proud of you.
And it sounds so simple. It sounds so simple, and it is simple. But how difficult it is, and how missed it is when it's not said out loud. It's really missed.
And I think it, in her mind, was like, oh, it's your duty and obligation to, to finish high school, to finish university, to finish MA, and maybe PhD, but I didn't. My act of rebellion. But, and this should be done. So there is nothing to be proud of something that you should do.
Yeah.
Maybe, I'm trying to rationalize it that way. She didn't teach me because she was not the type of the woman that was doing that. She didn't teach me how to relax, how to do the meaningless things. It took me years to learn that I should not feel guilty of doing nothing. That I should feel that relaxation and doing what I really like and that is not meaningful is also okay. And so these are the things, I wanted more emotion because I'm the emotional person.
Yeah.
I'm the one who's pure emotion. Come on, I cry at the movies, but I ugly cry at some movies. Not just few tears. And she was, she is still the person who is solving problems and who is very rational. And I try to learn from that. I'm trying to not to be like that. I'm really saying my kids that I love them and that I'm proud of them, even if in those small things that they do, because small things is what matters, not the huge things. So these are the lessons that I didn't learn from her. But on the other hand, I'm trying to not repeat them.
That's fantastic. This is why we talk about them. It's important to make them conscious, to think about them and talk about them so we do not repeat them. So we change the generational pattern. Yeah,
definitely. Maybe she thought that, if she softens up, that we will not be able to go through life. But I don't know.
That she'll make you soft. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, but that was actually, I was reading about that the pattern in upbringing of some generations. Like if we are hard, life is hard, we should not be soft because you will be soft. So don't cry.
Don't cry. Yeah, exactly. Dunja, thank you so much for this conversation. And it turned out exactly as I expected it would. It turned to be 2 interviews in one. We covered 2 hugely important and big and beautiful topics. And thank you for that. Thank you for taking time. And thank you for all the work you do supporting women. It's so important. Let me help to very quickly recap the lessons you learned from Mama Tanya. I have to not dwell on hard times. They sometimes happen, but you just get emotional, you get it out of your system, you get up and approach them as problems and solve problems. To not give up when things don't look great, because that sometimes happen, hard times. To work hard. You told me being persistent, but I like working hard as well, because I love how she said that her best students weren't the ones who were intelligent, but the ones who studied hard. I think it's really, really important. And then we had this beautiful long part of our conversation about what she didn't teach you about. And we spoke about what a shame it is when we don't teach our daughters about their bodies and their sexuality, how important it is to be able to express emotions, to celebrate small things in life, and sometimes take time to do nothing, and how important it is to tell our children that we love them and we are proud of them. I think that's it. I think we have it. That's all we talked about. Did I miss something?
No, I think that's
fantastic.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Dunja, thank you so much for this beautiful, beautiful conversation.
Thank you again for inviting me. It was my pleasure, really.
If you enjoy Thank You Mama and want to help it grow, please take the 2 seconds to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. If you'd like to get in touch, you can send me a mail at info@thankyumama.net. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Anna Teider. That's Tajder. This was Thank You Mama. Come back next week, subscribe, and tell your friends.